Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're going to unpack something truly fascinating. Have you ever wondered why superpowers deliberately stage political fights? I mean, if you've been watching the news lately, you've definitely seen the headlines. The outrage, the loud public clashes of massive personalities like Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu playing out on the world stage. But what if? What if all that noise is actually just a smokescreen? Today, we're going to completely ignore the noise and rely strictly on game theory to figure out what's really happening behind the curtain, looking specifically at a recent, super high-profile clash in the Middle East. So how exactly does a small nation outsmart a global superpower? That's the prevailing cable news narrative we get fed all the time. The story usually goes a little something like this. The President of the United States goes on the record, says he calls the shots, and tells an ally in the Middle East to hold back. But then, literally hours later, that ally does the exact opposite. They launch fighter jets, they strike deep, and instantly the media runs wild with the same narrative. The superpower lost control, the tail is wagging the dog, and a small country somehow outsmarted the most powerful man on the planet. It paints this incredibly compelling picture of an underdog ally successfully defying a giant. But before we dive any deeper, I want you to lock a specific number into your memory right now. Just the number 0. Hold on to that mystery number in your head for the next few minutes, all right? Because by the end of this explainer, that single digit is going to flip this entire story completely inside out. All right, let's jump straight into phase 1, the setup and the trap. We kind of have to start with the basic facts here because the surface facts are exactly where the trap is hiding. The story we're often fed is just really satisfying. The underdog beats the bully. And look, the logic seems completely sound on the surface. You have a leader like Benjamin Netanyahu facing intense domestic pressure from political rivals, supposedly taking on Donald Trump. The Middle Eastern leader needs to look independent, right? Like this sovereign warrior who bows to absolutely no one, especially going into an election. So he ignores the superpower. The motive is there, the history is there, and the surface facts seem to back it up 100%. It's exactly why so many analysts fall for it. But here is the catch. Everyone is looking at the wrong thing entirely. And that brings us right into phase 2, holding the oxygen tank. We really need to peel back that first layer of the onion and look at where the true leverage actually lives in this relationship. This ally doesn't fight alone. They are completely dependent on 3 absolute lifelines that run exclusively through Washington. First up, advanced munitions. The precision-guided bombs, the bunker busters, the interceptors for air defense, a massive share of that arsenal is American-made and American-supplied. That is a hard dependency, not a favor. Second, the eyes and the shield. When missiles fly, the radar, the satellites, and the early warning data tracking them are operated and fed by the United States. Pull that thread, and the whole operation goes blind. Third, and maybe most importantly, the permission structure. A nation can launch a controversial strike and face a UN vote the very next morning. What actually protects them from real, crippling consequences isn't just their army. It's the American veto at the United Nations. One hand raised in New York is worth more than an entire squadron of jets. The superpower holds the oxygen tank. Which leads us to basically the most important question of this entire explainer. If America genuinely wanted to stop this strike, why didn't it use its actual leverage? In game theory, leverage is only real if you're actually willing to use it. The superpower holds the weapons, the intelligence, and the veto. If the president actually wanted to stop the strike, he didn't need a phone call or an angry social media post. He just needed to cut off one shipment, delay one intelligence feed, or threaten one single veto. But America didn't touch a single one of them. Think about it. You do not keep protecting someone who just humiliated you in front of the entire planet unless you were never actually embarrassed to begin with. And that takes us directly into phase 3, the 2-audience theater. Here is where the game theory logic reveals why an American president would actually want to look like he was defied. These 2 leaders aren't really talking to each other. They're talking past each other, entirely on purpose, to 2 completely different crowds. Look at their opposing domestic political needs. Donald Trump needed to look like the peacemaker, the ultimate deal maker. He required this image for voters who were exhausted by conflict, for markets that panic over oil spikes, and for allies demanding stability. He absolutely had to be seen saying, stop. On the flip side, Benjamin Netanyahu needed the exact opposite image. He had to look like the sovereign warrior who takes orders from nobody, just to survive a brutal domestic election and silence his rivals. By having a massive public fight, both men get exactly the footage they need for their respective audiences back home. So let's put a formal name to this. We call it manufactured friction. It's a strategic, staged conflict between allies designed to serve the domestic political needs of both leaders simultaneously. The public disagreement isn't a bug in the system. The disagreement is the actual product. It is pure theater, and both domestic audiences eagerly bought a front-row ticket. This is an absolutely crucial framework for understanding geopolitical drama that otherwise seems totally irrational. Now I want you to think about this glaring anomaly. Right after the strike happened, supposedly humiliating the White House, what did the US government actually say? Nothing. Crickets. No formal complaint, no angry on-the-record denial, total silence. Think like a game theorist with me here. When a report comes out that damages a government and it happens to be false, the standard operating procedure is to deny it immediately. When a government stays completely silent in the face of a story that supposedly humiliated it, that silence is not weakness. That silence is a massive signal. In this game, silence is consent. All right, let's zoom out a bit for phase 4, the real global target. Because when you look at the macro level, the true targets of this whole coordinated theater, they aren't even in the Middle East at all. If the smaller nation was genuinely defying the superpower, you'd expect at least one of their actions to hurt American interests, right? But every single move served Washington's long-term strategy. Degrading a rival regime, well, that weakens adversaries. Keeping the region a bit unstable, that justifies an ongoing American military presence. Forcing rivals to activate their air defenses, that collects incredibly valuable, real-time combat data for the next phase of operations. Every apparent act of defiance perfectly, flawlessly advanced the United States' strategic interests. And that data matters for a much larger global contest. Iran isn't just an isolated player acting in a vacuum. It is a major partner to Russia and one of China's absolute key energy suppliers. When you weaken Iran, you aren't just hitting Iran. You are systematically kicking a massive support beam out from under America's primary global rivals, Moscow and Beijing, at the exact same time. The real strategy is to keep those energy flows contested, which keeps countries like China, who depend enormously on that oil, totally vulnerable. So the smaller ally isn't the puppet master here at all. They are the forward instrument doing exactly what the superpower needs done. Which brings us to our final stop, phase 5, the test. Okay, time to resolve our core mystery and give you an analytical toolkit so you can predict the future yourself. Remember that number I asked you to hold on to at the very beginning? 0. Well, 0 is exactly the number of American weapon shipments that were paused, delayed, or cut off after the superpower was supposedly humiliated on the global stage. Exactly 0. And now it makes perfect sense. You do not disarm your own instrument in the middle of a job. That 0 is not evidence of weakness, it's the confession. It's the footnote Washington accidentally left visible, proving beyond a doubt they never actually wanted to stop the strike. The source material actually puts it incredibly bluntly. That is not defiance. That is coordination wearing a costume. I mean, wow. When you realize the leverage was never touched, the public anger is exposed for exactly what it is, theater. This wasn't manipulation. It was a rehearsed collaboration with a script. You've got 2 leaders, 2 audiences, 1 shared objective, and a staged fight to sell the whole thing to the world. So I want to empower you to test this game theory out yourself in real time. Think of it as a bit of homework. First, watch the weapons pipeline, not the press conferences. If there's genuine fury, you're going to see an actual on-the-record hold on military hardware. Second, watch the silence. Look for formal on-the-record denials from the State Department, not just anonymous leaks or social media posts. If they don't appear, remember, silence is consent. And third, watch China and Russia. Follow the pressure, not the personalities. Are Beijing and Moscow ending up more boxed in and strained on energy? If reality matches up with these predictions, coordination is absolutely the strongest explanation on the table. I'm going to leave you with this one final provocative thought. The next time you see a loud, dramatic clash between world leaders dominating the headlines, don't just ask who is controlling whom. Ask yourself this: why do both of these leaders need the world to believe they're fighting? And who truly benefits when we buy into the illusion? Because power never lies. Words lie, sure, but actions do not. And very often, the loudest fight in the room is the one that was meticulously rehearsed. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those hard questions, and I'll see you next time.